performance of the budget. Support loan for 2019-2020 from the World Bank and IMF. And we have attached the schedule for the performance. I hope you've been able to put it there, which the committee will look up. Where is it? Where is the schedule?
Yeah, they have it.
The second question was, I think they wanted us to know the supplementary expenditure schedule 1 and 2.
Colleagues, have you seen the schedule Annex 1? No. The schedule Annex 1?
We don't have.
Can you give them out quickly, please?
The committee, Madam Chair, raised a second question on the budget, the supplementary budget schedule 1 and 2 had similar items that you had already approved.
Yes.
In June.
Yes.
Last financial year. It is true, and as we concluded that debate on that day, we said it was going to be possible. It was not going to be possible to spend that, in case it is not possible to spend that money, we would use a technical route to spend it after the financial year opens. And that's what we did. And what we did is that we used the supplementary expenditure which was provided for under Schedule 1, and the minister used the window of the 3% to spend that supplementary expenditure the way it was, and then report back to Parliament. That was the only route that we could use.
But why is it again appearing in this borrowing?
Which one?
The items.
The items.
Yes,
I remember very well items like for the seedlings, the 15 million for microfinance support center,
yes,
all of them.
They have to appear. The reason why they have to appear, Mudim, as you know, every financial year we have got to close the accounts.
Yes.
Yeah. So every financial year we start afresh. So when we are spending under the 3%, the items that you have spent on in the new financial year must appear the way you have spent on.
That much we don't have, Minister, but it got its funding. Why is it again coming?
It got its what?
Funding from IMF World Bank, which is 1.3.
Yeah, but you see what happened? We got and we are going to give you the performance of the loan that we had borrowed in that financial year. I think it's important, this you know, Madam Chair and colleagues, that when we borrow for budget support, we put money in the what? In the pool. So at that material time when we were closing the year, how was the situation? It's what Zua and the team will be able to explain. What the point the committee members are raising, that when we were borrowing for the supplementary at the end of June, we said that we are going to finance those items in the supplementary. But we could not spend by end of June because of the time. And we spent in July, and at the same time, now in the new borrowing, we are still saying we use it, we need that money to spend on the supplementary. So Zua will make a comment on that.
Okay.
The third point was,
why don't we get that one clarified before we proceed? Because it's one of the issues which were
can you clarify
the members' heads.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson and members. Through my minister, as the correctly mentioned, the borrowing was for budget support in that financial year, this expenditure requirement. But as you are aware, when that budget support comes, it goes to the consolidated fund. So there were a queue of expenditures as at that time. So there was no time to spend on this one. So we had to meet the expenditure, which was already programmed to meet the commitments.
But Honourable Minister, if we had time for this money to be spent, and it was attached to certain expenditure lines, what would have happened to those which were in the queue and were not part of it?
They would not be met. They would not be met.
What is very disturbing, it means that the priority expenditure items which were attached to the resource which was approved, none of it was touched at all.
Yes.
But you found other more deserving. What would have been the case if there was time?
Yeah, Madam Chairperson, those expenditures would not have been met because they all compete in the same basket on the consolidated fund in the TSA.
Then in that case, why when we are asking for supplementary, why don't we just apply for block unallocated figure to serve whichever comes in first, or whichever is prioritized first? Remember, we spent a lot of time breaking down this expenditure against those items, and we also took into consideration those which were going to be a stimulant to the economy at that time. And I remember many of the items which were prioritized were supposed to stimulate the economy.
But Madam Chair, I think we need to understand this clearly, how really budget support works. Budget support is different from project financing. A project financing is specifically for a certain project with certain terms and conditions. So when it comes to do whether it is water or roads, you must apply it to roads. If that road is not completed, you cannot shift that money to go somewhere else. Whereas the budget support is basically coming in to finance the revenue shortfall, the side of the revenue. The side of the revenue. And this side of the revenue is there to support what Parliament has approved, which is both main appropriation, budget, and supplemental appropriation. So at that time when we were...
on that, please?
You can explain that.
I want to convince you this afternoon, this evening, Mudim. So when that time, when we were at the end of the financial year, we approved this supplementary. And the point you are making, Dim, is that part of the reasons we gave was that when we were borrowing the World Bank, is that we said we wanted to finance the what?
The items which were approved by
the items which were approved by the House.
On 26.
Yes, and then on the 30th of June,
yes,
we had not spent.
Yes.
Now the question is, how much was remaining on the 1st of July? And how much do we now have up to the end of the financial year to finance both the budget, which you approved, the supplementary appropriation, which was a technical route, but it does not now be accounted for this last financial year, because last financial year closed and was never spent. So the money
saved and
but it was never spent, because at the end of the financial year
it was not spent.
No.
Yeah, it was not spent.
If it was not spent, then why don't we deduct it?
So now
we are asking for now.
Exactly.
No, but now the question would be, that money is already spent in this financial year. It was not spent in the last financial year, but it is spent in this financial year. So this financial year, we need to look at it. How much money in terms of revenue do you have? How much money do you need to finance the activities of this financial year? But if you look at it as a separate...
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this is something also that I wanted to understand. In this borrow, the minister says this borrowing is to finance the budget that we have already approved. Now, I was thinking today, when you look at, for example, classified expenditure and defense, where we are spending the money, where we are going to borrow for. Now, when I was looking, let us ask ourselves this question. What was the budget for these areas? What was the budget? How much have we already released from the ministry for the activities of the budget, of this particular area? What is the balance which has not yet been released to that ministry?
Plus the new pressures.
Yes, plus the new pressures. Now, what we are borrowing at the moment, is it equal to the balance which is required now, which has not yet been released to them, plus the new pressures, or it is more? If we give that calculation, is what we are giving them to borrow now. We are borrowing for example, classified or even defense and so forth. What we are borrowing to them, is it the balance that they have not yet received from the Ministry of Finance, or it is just something which is more, which was not budgeted for? If it is more, then it doesn't become now the budget support. It is now something else. Number two is the question that I was asking myself. We are now going to finance the building of the roads in Congo. Was it in the budget? And we are calling this a budget support. Was it in the budget? The road of Congo was in the main budget? That is the question that has been ringing in my mind as we process this vote.
The issue of supplementary, normally the emergency in nature, not so now minister and the team from finance, and for seeing avoidable, but largely emergency. Is that Congo issue emergency?
Can we wait for the next budget?
Is it emergency? Mr.
And considering that on the Congo issue, this is an infrastructure construction. We know from experience, when we source money for infrastructure, on average it takes a year to 2 years before construction starts. Can't we postpone that one and handle those which are really emergency? We do all the other preliminaries, the designs, the what, and since we are going to finance it with partners, can we let the other partners, maybe who are not under the same amount of pressure as we are, so make them contribution and start off, and we join them along the way.
Chairperson, I'm a member of the Fiscal Infrastructure Committee. Yesterday, this matter also came from the Fiscal Infrastructure Committee, and when we asked the Minister, Honorable General Katumba, this is what told us about they are partnering with Congo. The Congo is going to finance 80%, and then Uganda, our contribution is 20%. Now that if Congo is providing 80%, can this wait for us to put in the next financial year? Because if Congo is giving 80% of the total cost, why should we be stampeded now? This can wait to the next financial year. It comes formally in the budget. You have started the budget process. But also on the first question, just supplement what Honorable has put in. This is the fifth month of the financial year. Have we exhausted the budget of
those
defense which was provided for this financial year? Has it been exhausted? I think this is what we do. Because we thought this supplementary would come at the end, that we were exhausted all their budgets. Now we need this for this. Because even at that time, there was still classified budget for it.
And knowing that the budget is released on a quarterly basis.
And Chairperson, if it was not for our for the campaigns or whatever it is, we would have even needed to go and check on these roads. Where are these roads? We needed to go there. That's what even the construction was saying.
January 14th is not too far.
It's not too far. We need to go and see.
Yeah, when we come back,
we got to see where this road here.
Whichever way it goes, we still have 4 months.
Yeah.
We'll go to them.
Before we pass it.
And the question is, friends, you have actually already passed
What?
the activity of some of these things that we want to finance. But the question is, and let me begin with his question. See, budget financing is financing what was appropriated by Parliament, okay? And the additional pressures which must also be appropriated by Parliament. In other words, there is nothing government can finance without the authority of Parliament. So we had the budget, And also we had, during the implementation, we had additional pressures which we added to have the adjusted, if you like, adjusted budget. And this adjusted budget needs resources to be financed. But we do not have enough money from our revenue. So as these expenditures come up, our revenue, because of COVID and others, has also been going down. For example, this financial year, while you gave us a budget of 45 trillion, was it 45 trillion? And expected that we will correct how much? 21 trillion. We already know from our analysis that we shall have a revenue shortfall of 3.5 trillion. 3.5 trillion. So the question would be, should government wait, well knowing that some of these things that we are going to finance include fixed costs? Should we wait until the fourth quarter? And then you have a crisis of, for example, you don't have money to pay for these fixed costs, or should you plan properly now? So the budget that we are financing is a 45 trillion, okay? 45 trillion. You add what has been approved as additional supplementary pressures, which we call pressures, and when you add them, that's the resources that you must now raise during the financial year. And these resources are going to come from, 1, the revenue, 2, from domestic financing, and 3, from external financing. And then grants, we don't have much grants, but those are the 4 areas that we come up with. So this is how the whole thing should be looked at. Now the question, so that's really how it should be looked at. From if you are talking about budget financing, you should look at it from a holistic that is going to be put in the pot to finance all the activities that have been approved by Parliament. The other question is, are these things, Honorable Okupa Elijah and Brother Mudim said, defense, that we gave you this much. Yeah, but when you look at what we have already approved by Parliament, which this ministry and government explained to the budget committee and the whole house approved, whether there were some contractual obligations. And these classified expenditures, we said for us not to endanger the security of the country, let us put, you remember Mudima was with you in that Parliament, we said let us put a committee that will look into the classified expenditure. Now this committee, which is comprised of 3 people, looked into the classified expenditure. If they look at the classified expenditure and okays it, then the House will move. Because we said we don't want to open up this classified expenditure, but we need to look into it, like other parliaments do. Even America and the UK, they have committees that look into classified. So some of
it is contractual obligation.
Yes,
it's a known if they are contractual.
but of a classified nature.
Yes, but why?
Yeah, but if there is yes, but if there is a need now, if something has changed and they say now,
what is that?
What will you say? That's why we put a classified expenditure to look at that. And once they okay it, we go and move. But I can tell you that the things are urgent.
Okay.
And they will be classified in nature. Yeah, and urgent. And very urgent. Very urgent, friends. So the other one is about to, and I think Mudimi, who was it? You said you are no infrastructure or,
me.
Oh yeah, Honorable Elijah Cooper. We are doing, as the Honorable General Katumba told you, this financing of the 20% in DRC. Dear friends, it's important to note that supporting regional markets is key and strategic for our country.
No one is opposing that. No one is opposing that.
Full support of that.
Now, if you are in full support, okay, if you are in full support of it, then actually the approval of this should have been a month ago. Because yes, I will give you an example. I will give you an example. I will give you yes, because these things and the Honourable Minister has been there. These things come the negotiations come, the timings, all these are factored in. For example, you know that now we have the other day we were talking about overproducing of our maize. Okay? You remember when we wanted actually to get money from UDB to support people who had excess. Where is this production which we are supporting going to be? But now when you go to Congo, what the two governments under the leadership of President Yoweri Museveni and President Tshisekedi agreed upon is that we are going to tarmac some roads, and that will be the 60%. Then the 20% which government government of Uganda is contributing is to do emergency roads to help our roads to take things to Congo. And you have seen on the social media and other places how the roads in Congo are. If you have businessmen who are doing business now in Congo, they will tell you from here to Beni you can take how many days? We want 7 days. Now if you are carrying maize, there is a market which is already there, which we must not even wait for a week. We must supply our things. We are telling our people produce.
Have you seen the one of Casilo? Yeah, this is how they are.
But this is Elijah. If I was not here, if I was not on this one, I would have told you how these pressures go through. Sometimes even you as members of parliament, there are times when you make some decisions when even something in the house is not yet sorted out, but for purposes of progress. Yeah.
But do you think we have that guarantee that you will be taking whatever measure you are doing?
Yes.
I've seen a scenario where now Uganda is import cheap rice from Tanzania. Duty free. And then now they are outcompeting the local ones. We have that guarantee. And then we are just here playing politics.
No, we have the guarantee.
The second one is we have good roads across in Kenya. Why are they stopping us from taking milk there?
Yeah,
you must also be able to deal with non-tariff barriers, because you can have a good roads on the neighborhood, but then because of the non-tariff barriers, you cannot be able to do business there.
Me, as somebody who has, as government, who have interacted and the president has got involved in this, there is already a market in DRC Congo for our produce. There is already a market for DRC Congo. And we can tell you, people have maize, people have everything. You can now make money. For now, let me tell you, we are now making $530 million in that country.
Building this road takes 3 years to build this road. 3 years to build this road. So you can't even say this now.
We are trying to be the devil's advocate because, as you are aware, this loan is already being criticized in the public domain. So we are really trying to get support. And one of the ways we thought we could do it is by lessening on the amount, so that we take what is most critical now. And when we come back from the elections, we can approve the other one. Because the number is really threatening. The number is threatening. This is going to be the highest borrowing from the public. And from what the Private Sector Foundation, Bank of Uganda, and the Bankers Association told us was really scary. For them, they were totally against. They were totally against it. Of course, we know the bankers want business, but when we did a quick calculation here, if we take on this loan, we would be paying 2 billion shillings every day in loan servicing. 2 billion shillings, and in a year, that will be how much interest? 645 billion.
Madam Chair, I think
can you get him copies of their submissions?
We have debated this issue, even at the House level. The House will debated the budget. Chair, one of the things that the private sector, as much as some of them say that, but on the other side, they want payment for the business they have done with government. We have now over 0.25 trillion in domestic area.
That's what they want to be prioritized.
Now we are paying 400 billion this financial year. Now the other thing is that the Committee of National Economy need not worry about because we debated these issues in the budget committee and passed the supplementary.
So should we rubber stamp?
No, I'm not saying you rubber stamp because you are with us in the house.
No, but what I mean is you debated in the budget committee, but that was expenditure.
Even the budget committee.
Yeah, but they approved it.
Yes, they approved the expenditure, but where's the revenue now?
The
Can
budget
you go on with the expenditure?
No, that was on the.
last week was just the budget committee. The budget committee has already reported.
No, I've
We don't know what's in the report.
to get you
No,
the,
they
We don't know what's in the report.
the copies of presentations from the three agencies when we met them.
Yeah.
First of all, they were not opposed to borrowing from the private sector, but their concern was for what is this money going to be applied to?
Is it a productive sector or
Is
just
it a productive sector? Is it to support the private sector? Because they were very strong on paying domestic arrears. They said if the bulk of this money was going to for domestic arrears, they would be sure that it was going to trigger production. And through that production, we'll be able to get revenue, which will help us to service these loans. And it was also going to create the yields, to increase the yields on the money from the banks. And that is a scare that even if they have surplus money, once government interest is high, the private sector will have to borrow at an even higher rate.
No, but you see, the private sector needs to understand that growing the economy is extremely important. Whatever you are talking about, if the economy does not grow, if the country is not stable, whatever you're talking about can just go in 1 minute. Yes.
even what they are saying,
Yes.
put money paid the domestic carriers is growing the economy. Because you have money,
Now
you
you are-
inject
you are
and
put-
grow the economy. But
now-
then you can't keep getting out from them
Now,
without paying.
now you have put 400, Elijah.
Yeah.
You have put
How much?
400.
Oh, it's just a peanut.
You
Just
have put
less than
400.
10%
You have
of
put
what you
400.
own.
400.
Now 4 trillion.
Yeah, but what we prioritize
That's
in this one,
10%.
yeah,
Just
but
10.
yeah, but what we prioritize.
Now you are taking-
No, the priority we made in this domestic areas was that let us first pay people who have supplied government, because there are categories of domestic areas. There are those quota awards. Quota awards is how
Those
much?
can wait.
Eh?
Those can wait.
Isn't it how much? 1 point something. So out of 2 point
And
something.
the ones who are
So out of something 2 point trillion. So what we agreed upon was that let us agree with, no, we said let's agree to clear the domestic areas in 3 years. So last year we put 500 billion. This year we put 400 billion for purposely those who have supplied government first. Then quota awards we struggle with it along the way. You see? We struggle with it along
Quota awards
the
you
way.
can
So
take
part of this
forever.
money that we are borrowing is actually also to pay them, because the domestic areas are part and parcel of the budget. So they must look at it from the broader perspective. Yeah.
Because the argument, strong argument,
In the
was that
supplementary,
this
this
money
supplementary, we
should
have
go
domestic areas.
to those areas.
Ah, which one is that?
There was also the mission in where Mozambique, Angola.
Yeah.
How is that one going to grow the
There's 230
the short
billion.
run? The mission in Mozambique, how is that one going to grow the economy?
How is that?
The mission in Mozambique, Ben.
In the Mozambique, in the mission in Angola.
How is it going to grow the
They grow, they getting the market.
The mission is.
And the nominee has declined too.
He has refused to appear before the
Yes,
appointment
he has
committee.
declined.
Who has refused?
Kaka.
Yeah. So what I do?
He never showed up. We were there waiting. Nothing. No communication, not even in writing.
She is not interested. And you are
Oh,
opening. What you are opening
no,
for?
we are not. We are opening this. We
Not for Kaka.
are opening this mission for Uganda. First and foremost, and I think Elijah, you attend that meeting in the budget committee, is that we really have got to open this for several strategic reasons. One, Angola has been a great ally in terms of security. You know, they are the ones who are really negotiating this peace agreement between Rwanda and Uganda. They are the ones involved in DRC, Congo, and everywhere. So they are very strategic for all of us. Secondly, it is for trade. It is for trade. it is for trade. So I think the most important thing, let us grow this economy.
But that's even a peanut.
When we grow the economy, and we have been very cautious about borrowing. The other day I was making a presentation. Do you know that in the whole of this region, we are the only ones who are below 50%?
Yeah, for good reasons.
Yeah, for good reasons.
Yes.
Below 50%.
You cannot compare yourself to Tanzania and Kenya, who have got a ready market by virtue of being of having the sea, which we don't have.
So now, once in the 3 years, if we start getting our oil money, most of these things will
Let us deal with.
Then the minister go back.
And Honourable Minister, going back to your the submission in your memo, where approved and revised revenue projections, you indicated under budget support loans equivalent to 2.773, and yet the loan from IMF is about 2.34. Since we are getting the loan from IMF, should this figure also remain at 2.773? The 600 millions is equivalent to how much? From IMF? 2.1. Okay, if you deduct it from this, the figure here should be 600 billions, not 2.7 billions. I don't know whether you have a copy of that submission on page 3, table 1.
Your response.
But I have not finished the response. Can I do it quickly?
Okay, proceed. But I don't know whether colleagues you are satisfied.
No.
Whether you are satisfied on the prioritization for this borrowing.
No.
How do we proceed? But there is no time. Some of us have got rough consequences. We want to put them
We can reconvene tomorrow morning. Then we have time to, because you have to recorrect the information.
So if I can go
But
on,
as I told you colleagues at the beginning, the minister went with the chairman of the budget committee and requested for special parliamentary sitting, which you said is Tuesday of next week, on the 9th.
10th.
And is it on the 10th or 9th?
We can meet on
And the speaker has allowed it as the last sitting of this parliament before we go for elections. So if you don't handle this one now, it means we will handle it after the elections.
But the most important thing, Madam Chair, is that the government needs to operate. That is the most important thing.
But you know you have to do a good job.
Yeah.
So,
By the because the speaker was also saying that if we are not ready on Tuesday, if we are not ready on section on the 10th, we can meet on the 18th, 17th. If we are not ready,
no, but the budget
we are going to launch our campaign on Monday. Then we want to come back.
No, but I think the most important thing is that we have a duty as government to give you all the information you need to make a decision. And what we are saying, Elijah, is that the decision needs to be made by Parliament so that the executive can know.
yeah, after the thorough discussion.
Yes.
Minister, we separated this into 2 motions.
Yes.
We can proceed with the one for IMF, which is a lot
That is
easier.
easier.
That is the easier one. We submit that one for IMF.
The domestic is the most important.
That is
You say, so you know.
On the 18th.
Anyway, let me have a duty to make this presentation quickly. Then you can make a decision as a committee. Yeah. So the second point is the performance of the revenue. Colleagues, which you have seen, the performance of the revenue is there. The third point which you wanted was the loan request of 2.1 trillion for domestic services. It is through Parliament approved 7.4 trillion for domestic refinancing. It is also true that the loan request is seeking 2.1 trillion for domestic debt financing during this financial year. The 2.1 trillion allows out of debt obligations for financial 2019-20. Government was not able to fully meet the debt obligation in financial year 2019-2020 due to COVID pandemic. So that's the reason why we want to sort out this. A letter from His Excellency the President for additional funding. We are getting this letter this evening. He was in the issues of nominations.
Why are we jump to page 3?
Page what?
We jump to page 3. Now we are on page 4.
If there is issue number 4.
Yeah, I dealt with issue number 4.
What about number 3?
Number 3 was revenue, which you were saying, you were telling me that this you can read.
But you decided to continue reading because we said we would read, but then now we went again selectively to the straight.
Okay, let me finish and then I come back on this. So the letter of the president will come.
Where is it?
The country's letter of intent, which contains the commitments, including specific conditions for IMF to the borrowing of 600, has also been attached to the response. The response will come up, or the response will come after clearance. Yeah.
The response to who?
To the IMF.
No, but Madam Chair, the Honourable Minister, he raised the Vice raised a specific issue. He wanted to know when the IMF changed the mandate. Yes, it's mandate. That's what he wants.
When the what?
They changed. Because initially they were monitoring physical policy.
It's because of COVID, and they can send us. We have the ones we presented last year.
So can we have that one?
It's because of COVID.
Yeah, IMF normally does it when you're in a desperate position.
Yeah, it comes in when countries are struggling. Yeah. So the last one I think is what Honorable Elijah Cooper said I should highlight, which was revenue performance for 2020-21. The total revenue collection for financial 2020-21 are projected to amount to 19.3 billion.
Number 3.
Number 3. Against
the net revenue collection. Number 3. Okay.
Yes. Against the initial target of 21.8 billion, which was approved by Parliament, hence a shortfall of 2.5 billion. The performance attributed to low revenue collection on account of slowdown in economic activities as a result of coronavirus. The projected revenue outturn for financial 2021 is 19.3 trillion. Is broken down as follows. Tax revenue 18.06 trillion, non-tax revenue 1.2 trillion, of which appropriation is 564 billion. The factors underlying, I think that should be factors, futures underlying the projected outturn for financial 2021 of 19 trillion as follows. The revised base, that is the revised projected revenue outturn of 17.5 trillion, taking into account the effects of COVID pandemic on the economy, instead of 18.9 trillion. As of December 2019, the preparation of the budget framework paper leading to a loss of 1.3 trillion, meaning that we had to change the projected revenue, what the target for the projected revenue because of the COVID, to be a bit more realistic. Gains from macroeconomic assumptions, price, gain volume growth, and elasticity of 769 billion, and that have somebody from macro who can explain that, against 1.5 trillion, leading to a loss of 800 billion. On account of the revision of economic growth rates for financial year from 6.3% to 3.1 at the time of BFP was prepared. But here I must state, friends, that Uganda is among the few countries that have maintained a positive growth in this pandemic of 3%. Others are actually in negative. So we should really thank ourselves that we are moving.
It matters where this growth is coming from. If it is coming from
Then tax measures,
it does not trickle to people's pockets.
Then tax measures, 366 billion instead of 676 billion, leading to a loss of 310 billion. The loss was occasioned by the decision of Parliament to reject some revenue enhancement measures during their consideration of the tax bill financial 2021. But we are not complaining because we have the authority to make that decision. Tax administrative measures of 578 billion. The net revenue correction for Q1 amounted to 4.1 trillion against the target of 3.02 trillion, registering a surplus of 1.09 trillion. However, when compared to the original Q1 target in the budget of 4.8 trillion, Q1 registered a shortfall of 783 billion. So the bonus, as the Commissioner General told you last time, it was more on the revised downwards of the projected revenue. According to the historical revenue performance, we collect on average 48% of the annual revenue target in half a year, and 52% of the target in the second half. However, upon revising the revenue target for financial 2020-21, we projected 37% of the total revenue target to be corrected in Q1 in half a year, first half of the year, due to the uncertain economic recovery, and 63% of the revised target in the second half of the year. Therefore, the monthly targets for the period January to June 2021 are extremely high, and the revenue surpluses being registered in the first half of the year will most likely be washed away by the losses expected in the second half of the year. So, Madam Chair, these are some of the clarifications you wanted. I want once again to let you know that we really need to move, because we need to finance the operations of government. We are depending on this domestic borrowing to help us finance the finances, including this quarter, which we are already in. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank you very much. Honorable colleagues, apart from the two letters which are pending, the one from National Planning Authority, the opinion on the proposed domestic borrowing, that one we are yet to get, and we are also yet to get the letter from the President. But I would have expected that to have some kind of correspondence with IMF, a letter of intent or something. All these things cannot be purely verbal. Purely verbal. Is there no communication with IMF at all?
There was communication, there was some.
Is there no even letter of intent or something? Supposing we approve and they change positions. We need something at least. The detailed letter can come after the approval as they require, but there must be some communication to the effect. Colleagues, is there any issue which you feel has not been competently responded to, where you would like to seek a further clarification?
Madam Chair, we need the Minister of Finance to provide us with the last quarter financial, actually Q4, the revenue collected and the expenditure, because you said part of the money was swallowed within. We need to have that. Because for us, our assumption and thinking that this was rolled over to West Financial, which is true, and unless you prove beyond reasonable doubt. So we need that, and we internalize. If we can have it in the morning, then we can sit and look at it. I can postpone where I'm going tomorrow. And
Are you going to heaven? No. Chairperson, I don't know whether Chairperson, I don't know whether the minister also this issue of the radios, whether he has given the intentional information about it, because Madam Chair, you see the money we passed for the masks, face masks over COVID. I don't know whether your district has received. If they cannot deliver the masks, just these mere masks, how can they be able to deliver the radios? 9 million and the radios, and the radios, you know, the process of making a radio is not like for the masks, the face masks.
Chair, that issue was extensively debated
not here.
in the budget committee, where the Minister of Education sent all the details that were required, but according to the Minister of Education, as all of you know, our friends, is that the e-learning, the distance e-learning, has the Ministry of Education is continuing e-learning. Some of the children of the people who are able are actually on internet and they are learning. Others in the villages are not learning. And it's important that we find a mechanism of reaching out to these children and giving them knowledge as we continue to struggle with COVID-19, because we do not know how this will finally end. We are all waiting to see whether we can have a vaccine or whether we can have something that can do this. So in this period, the Ministry of Education has been trying a number of efforts to help the education system. They started with materials which went some level. They started with radio and TV, TV and radio. So what Cabinet agreed upon was that let's have that system which can reach every household. And we agreed that we do all the households so that we do not have any excuse in the house to say that I'm your dad, I'm doing something here. No, let's have a radio that will be dedicated for education. And I want to emphasize that some of the parents, some children of some parents are already online, including some of our children. But also there are others up country and everywhere who are not studying. And the only way they can be reached is, the easiest way is through a radio.
No.
It's through a radio.
Chairperson, there are questions which were partly raised, which they failed to answer. One of which, like my colleague here, you talk of it, which radio, they only reach Kenya. How can a child how can they be able to help people in that region? And it's not only that place. Are you going to be putting it in Kenya?
Parts of Raka.
The big Tanzania. Then too, you remember when the Minister of Education came, when they were asking for that money for those materials. They asked for money and he gave us the statistics from WUBOS, showing the number of households, which is now different from the number of households they are showing. They want the radios for. And at that time, they had also given us statistics, the number of households who have radios. So if we needed the radios now, we would have only been to give that percentage.
Because
they don't have the radios, not the 9 million households.
According to WUBOS, 7 million households have.
Yeah, 7 million.
So we are now looking at 2.
And that was, even then, Madam Chair, how do you give the RDCs to handle issues of education? RDCs don't know where the children are. You would have given this to the teachers or even the DOs because they know where their children are. RDCs, for example, in my district are keeping those materials they're talking about in their offices there, and they are rotting, the rats are hitting them. We don't know anything about those things. Wasting
But Honorable Minister, to be honest, as we move towards the lower middle income status, The majority of homes have got radios.
7 million.
There are very few homes without radios.
Even the phone too.
We have statistics, and we all live in this country. We have one institution that does statistics for us.
Yes.
Which is Uganda Bureau of Statistics.
Which the Minister of Education he presented to the House.
No, the ministry, you got the under Ministry of
Finance.
And we are telling you that the number of households that have radios are around 5 million.
7 million.
No, they are 5 million.
They're more than that.
No,
7 million, that's what the Honorable Muigi gave us.
I will send the information.
Okay.
I will send it.
Okay, let's say 5 million you have.
Yes.
Now, by 9 million.
We are around 9 million households in the country.
8.8.
So, Cabinet, I'm telling you that Cabinet, we took a decision that if we are to go for radio, let us not have excuse of somebody in the home saying this radio is for this radio is for this. Let's have a radio dedicated for education. And every household will have a radio. That's the decision that we took. For that reason, we could advise, but we are telling you the radio that we have.
But Honorable Minister, you've seen, I've been in villages. You've seen where they even find the head of the family moves where to gather with the radio. How is he going to to help the learners? Because he will be away and he is entitled, he's the head of the family. It is very common.
I don't think you can take a decision using one or two person who will be urgent.
No, please. It is very common in rural areas.
Even Kampala here.
Yes.
You go to the slums here.
People move with their radio. Yes.
Even the jams used to come with the radio here. No, I think it can. And even now, if we get a vaccine by December, as the scientists are saying that by December we will get a vaccine. And these radios are going to be supplied by March or April next year. What do you want?
Don't you think it will be overtaken by investors?
And making a radio, how long does it take to make a radio? You see the problem of hosts. If not, the host, the issue of bicycles. You know what happened with the bicycles? If they fail, even those people are losing because of failing. Masks, hosts,
Chair, what we have learned from this COVID experience is that actually, whether COVID ends, which we are praying that it does, e-learning should be adopted and we should invest in it to make sure that there is e-learning in the country, whether there is COVID or not, because that's the experience we have learned. That's what we have learned. We cannot continue to advocate for something else.
Pre-primary up to P3 before. How can they learn on radio?
How do you manage?
P1, P2, because those ones you must show them. They must be seeing how do you how to write.
Can they sit in one place to listen?
They don't know even English, you must also teach them English.
You can simplify that. You can simplify it and reduce it.
Because they are saying that this category is from P4, P5
I
onwards.
don't know how many colleagues have children who are still going and they are at home.
Yeah, I have. They
They were all there.
They were all there.
You have the children at home.
And they were still producing.
You have the children at home.
Some have not gone to nursery.
Having an authority that engages our children in terms of giving them knowledge during this time.
Not in the ad hoc way, not in the failed system.
But this is what we are saying.
No.
What are you providing, Rajan?
I mean, during hold on, when there was a war in the north, that what we waited 4 years without education, but we were able to pick up. 4 years.
Start off with those without completely before universalizing it. If there are 5 million who have and we want to buy for 9 millions, can we start off with the 4 millions now? The other 5 millions, we shall give them because to be democratic. To be democratic.
They'll get last.
Because they are even going to be very poor quality. Because if you look at the masks,
If I look at
bicycles.
and our bicycles are being painted black. Why? They want to sell them.
No, they are here.
So our colleagues
Chair, I'm really begging that we support government to make sure that we don't get stuck.
We support or seriously?
Yes, we don't get stuck. We don't get stuck on, because we need domestic borrowing to really run the country.
Honorable Minister, you always make some adjustments. Can you accept some adjustments?
We are not
If you want to support.
Can we do it in a first manner?
In first manner, yeah.
Because we are also facing
Congo
a lot
waits
of
next financial year. We give 4 million.
Let's do half of the radio now, and
Congo next financial year.
How can it?
Congo we can
Because you
make a
can't,
small
because you can't build a road in 6 months.
I don't know whether you are listening to these radios, but everywhere, everywhere people are
Not the head of the owners. Those are the concessions.
And it's actually it's very important.
you'll be helped by the lack of quorum in the house. But otherwise, if there was full house, this loan wouldn't
There's
pass.
no even the committee has no quorum.
No, the transport, but what
No, half quorum is fine.
what has happened this evening?
No, not COVID, but they have serious issues.
You mean we have not had the serious issues with the president?
What does that mean?
Households,
Honourable
they are
Minister.
900, you have 5
Honourable
million.
Minister,
When I used to
give
be
us
where
that
you were, you were really very friendly.
please be a little bit flexible. Allow us to do it in a first manner. Be flexible and we'll do it in a first manner. Because we also want to sail through
Okay,
Parliament.
win-win.
No, I think
Let's get a win-win situation.
National economy, because you see, we have also been, and I think this thing has to be. We'll have to. I don't know whether this is. We'll have to find a way, the clerk, on how to handle when the loan is in the committee of national economy and the supplementary budget is in the committee of the budget.
And they have also approved it.
So we need really to continue looking at this because
You start with the
when-
first, go
no,
to the budget committee.
no. Last time when we were there and what the lawyers are telling us, last time when we brought that situation, you remember, it was the same thing. Parliament agreed that we need to first approve the activities before you look for the resources. That's what they approved, yeah. You need to first approve the activities, agree that the activities there. If we are even almost shut on the floor of the house, we agreed that we start with activities. Once activities are approved, then we go and look for the money for the activities for the money to finance activities which have been agreed by Parliament. Now Parliament has already agreed.
The budget committee has not presented the matter to the committee of the own house and approved. Because
We
it can go there.
approved it.
It can go there.
No, we approved it. No, we have-
But we are meeting the other day, the radio. The radios. Good, the radios are here.
No, the only items which are remaining are the radios.
Yeah.
But the other items were approved. They were approved. We have a resolution of Parliament. So,
But Honourable Minister, normally when we are looking into this,
You can defer that because there was shortage of resources. So you
We
can
have
approve that
to
activity.
define
I think
But if
what
you fail to raise
what
the money,
is- no,
so
what
now
is-
defer them.
no, what is happening? I think,
Colleagues,
Chair,
can we conclude, please?
Chair,
Because can we
Chair,
conclude?
I wanted to make this point. I think what the committee is looking at is what amount of money that you can approve now. And then probably government will have to go back and see how to. But when you go into activities, this and this, it might cause a lot of.
No,
But you cut from the
you
activities.
see, we must
But
have
activities have already
we must have a
It's not cast
rationale
in stone.
for
But-
recommending a certain figure. That's why you want to look into the activities. Like we are looking at the radios, we are looking at the Congo case. And we said that 50% of what they want for Congo, that one we can consider later. And we do 50% now. And for the radios, we can also do 50% now and the 50% later, using the assumption that 50% of the households already have radios. We start with those without radios. Even the procurement, the delivery of those radios, is going to be a cumbersome
The
exercise.
procurement is already ready.
We are told the same contractor.
why you permit government when there are no funds? You know this thing.
Yes, please.
Prime Minister, I'm also adding the limitation for the appropriation budget for this financial
2.5. But this
On
money,
top of what we are procuring now, what we are discussing
No,
now.
it is within what we're discussing, the projected shortfall.
Out, is it part of the 6 trillion?
Yeah, the project, yes, it is. The projected shortfall of 2.5 trillion is part of the reason why we are borrowing to fill that.
Okay, we can take that and we take 50% of the balance.
But Madam Chair, this loan of IMF, we got the money on 21st. This is your document. Which ordinary it is now in this financial year. So you have, it has increased your revenue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
By the 304,000 US dollars. Multiply that. What are you talking about?
It is what?
You know?
Members, do you strongly feel that we need another meeting or
Tomorrow we need to see.
There are too many things to be done, honestly. There are too many.
Minister is answering. We are not satisfied.
So we have to correct all the information anyway.
And when we write the report, if the meeting is on Tuesday, when do we get the members to sign?
But Tuesday, Madam, Tuesday, by the way, it may not be possible because first of all, if members are launching their campaign
On
Monday 9. So how can you launch and then drive?
The president is my
And then you left
constituency
it
that
there.
day.
Yeah, the press is there. So if they were to do it, if we are ready to do it next week, it cannot be Wednesday, Thursday, but it cannot be Tuesday.
Wednesday also is not.
That's why we are saying push it to 17th, 18th. The other Tuesday or Wednesday.
You had suggested
for me-
16.
For my,
Yeah, 16, yeah.
We had suggested 16.
16 will be a Monday.
no.
We have the report done.
You have the report done by 16.
It's either tomorrow or 16.
Yeah.
Either tomorrow or 16.
No, but the other arguments which people had were that if people have now gone to the constituency to campaign, calling them in the middle.
It's not the middle.
No, you
It
can't.
has ever happened.
You can't.
It's not
I remember even in the last campaign,
That's
there
what we call
were those
responsibility.
and the committee was called back.
Yes,
But I think let's do the work and then, yeah, because for me the information I have from the speaker is that, I don't know whether Elijah you have a different.
No, we can.
Yeah,
No, we are
in case if you are not ready, we cannot see.
No, but the budget committee, it will be
Okay, the budget
Let them
can.
present. But she cannot present the budget, then you get called members with another day for.
That's why we are saying.
That's why
Why don't you present it also on the 16th?
16, 17, yeah.
But what are the answers that we have
We
not
can go and,
given you?
the chairperson can go and.
What is it that we have not given you? Which
Yeah,
is?
Yeah,
Which one are they? We are here to answer them.
You are free to answer.
No, which
You
one?
know, Honourable Minister.
We have Honourable Minister.
Honourable Minister, I'm trying as much as possible because there was a threat of a majority report which is negative.
Yeah.
There was that threat from the members. And no, they call it the minority because they said more members we are going to sign the negative report. And the main report is now going to be the minority report. And I'm trying to prevent that through reaching a consensus with other members. It is easier for us to argue here and we reach an agreement rather than to fight a report on the floor.
Yeah, but what happens, madam, whatever, but we needed to know which issues you need us to address. Because also, as much as you go where we also
The quantum is one of them. We are saying let's phase it out so that we don't borrow all the 4 trillion now.
The what?
The quantum.
The biggest borrow.
We are saying that let's borrow that, let's take about 60% of that, and the other portion we take on much later. We take on later. Phase it out. That's
But
one of them.
Like now, that one, Madam Chair, we are telling you out of the 4.5 trillion, 2.5 is projected revenue shortfall.
Okay, then we take the
But that one will be reduced by this money which you have put here.
Which one?
The IMF and World Bank.
IMF is 2 point something.
Yeah, then
So the IMF money covers.
Then there's
projected
498,000 US dollars, and then there's 304. It will reduce by that. The 1.7 trillion. So it will reduce by that deficit.
So that is the issue which is now sorted.
Which how we reduce by 1.7
Which other issue is that? we try to give you as much as information.
I want to allow my technical people to advise also directly.
But the final decision is for the committee.
Janet, give us your ideas, please. Because going through is taking too long.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The concern about the supplementary is the House was already informed that that supplementary Schedule 1 was to address Schedule 3, 1920, which failed to have releases because of the time frame. However, Schedule 3, 1920 was approved with a resource of World Bank and IMF funding. So the challenge we are having is when you look at the resource projections under budget support loans, we had a projection of 2.7 trillion for this financial year. So this current IMF loan addresses that budget shortfall. It accounts for about 2.2 trillion in the budget support loans under the resource envelope. Now, when you bring the World Bank money that came in July this financial year, it should revise the resource envelope with that money for this financial year since it came. And then the IMF money, it's not clear because the money came 4 days about, let me see, the money came in on 25th June, which was 5 days to the end of the financial year, and went to the consolidated fund. So that IMF money...
When did it come in?
The IMF money came in on 25th.
And by that time, you know, who close your system.
World Bank
not spending.
While the World Bank loan, the $300 million came in on 21st July this financial year.
Yeah.
So ideally, you'd expect the resource to also have been revised with this.
Yeah,
so
and
that the supplementaries
and the new resource, the new resource for 2020-2021 takes into account the money that we received in the bank.
Yeah,
so the money, so it doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, if it takes.
Anybody wants to.
Let us.
If it takes into account the World Bank IMF money,
yes,
then it means the current borrowing of 600 million, the 2.2 trillion, would increase the resource.
Yeah, because you see, yeah, you see, madam, all the monies that we received, did it come at the end of the year? All the money that we received at the end of the year was, beginning with financial year, was captured in the resource of this financial year. But now, you should also take into account the additional pressures on the side of expenditure. That's number one. The second one will take into account the shortfall in the revenue. So there are two things we are trying to sort out here. The first one is the shortfall of revenue, which is projected at 2.5 trillion. That's number one. So the budget we have must, if we are to fulfill what we approved at cabinet, at the parliament, we must look for the shortfall of 2.5 trillion. Now, in addition to the shortfall of 2.5 trillion, we have added supplementary